Where is the mutation?
So the mutation is over
The
here.
cystic fibrosis gene was discovered at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto by Chief Geneticist Dr. Lap Chi Tsoi.
At this time, what we know about the cystic fibrosis genes really is the basic defect, and there's a large number of mutations. And then we thought with the gene we could do a lot of things with it, but the more we study, the more we don't know.
Tsoi is also president of the International Human Genome Project, a network of genetic researchers and scientists gathering an immense array of genetic information that will force many profound choices upon us as individuals and as a society.
It's hard to know what it means when you sort of try to avoid one particular genetic disease. It become a practice of eugenics. The reason is that we have so many diseases affecting us. You can do one, you may not be able to prevent another. So it is something that we have to develop a so-called social norm.
Some suggest social norms are already driving genetic research. Just follow the research money. But many questions remain. Which genetic mutations are in fact serious diseases? Is one disease more serious than the next? What makes one genetic mutation intolerable and the next just another very human frailty?
Okay, it's done.
We're using it to basically say, this is the way we think people should be, and if they're not like this, in this range of normalcy, we don't really want them among us.
Tom Koch is a medical ethicist and an author and consultant on bioethics. He believes it doesn't matter what the disease is. We shouldn't differentiate. All diseases are part of the diversity of the human race.
We tried this before in the early part of the 1900s, and it became the policies of eugenics of the 1920s and 30s. That's when we would forcibly sterilize women. People today say, yes, this is eugenics, but this is good eugenics because we know what it is. And we don't understand in the long course of human history what it means to wipe classes of people off the table. And I don't think we know as a society what it means to be without persons of difference.
Some people look at DNA testing or genetic testing for diseases as a way of removing certain people or the gene pool. But it can, well, for one, you cannot never eliminate a gene pool or a particular gene from the population because there are new mutations happening all the time. So it's not a way to sort of eliminate the disease gene from the entire population or try to prevent birth of these people in the entire world, because it's impossible.
As you see here, the wild type should be T.
The only way to avoid unwanted genetic characteristics so far is in the lab, choosing the right embryo, or by terminating a pregnancy.
3, 2, march it up!
Down syndrome occurs randomly. It's usually not hereditary. And in fact, like Adele, every one of us carries a handful of flawed genes that could manifest in a disease or condition at some point in our lives. Every life experience and every genetic difference, just like Adele's, it's argued, make each one of us unique.
Jet 4!
How does Down syndrome make you different from others?
Having Down syndrome, it's different because I'm not the same, so it makes me different.
Mm-hmm. Do you think people pay special attention to you because you have Down syndrome?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good thing?
Yes, it's really a good thing.
How does it make you feel?
It makes me feel happy.
4, last time, Jet!
Still, in the case of Down syndrome, it would appear most people have already made a genetic choice. The test was first made available in 1964, and now more than 90% of families will terminate a pregnancy if the Downs test comes back positive. And I guess many people would terminate the pregnancy because they feared they could not cope.
It's the fear. It's the fear of not being able to cope. That's right. But you don't know that you can do it until you're presented with it. You know, we never thought in our wildest dreams that we'd be in that position. Never ever thought that, because you don't think of those things.
No, you dream about the perfect child.
That's what you want. But I'm telling you, we have one. Pretty near.
Down syndrome is important in a number of ways in this. It's sort of the litmus test in many ways for a lot of what's going on. It was probably the first genetic test most people knew about. It dealt with a community among us who was very visible, and it was visibly different. It dealt with an area which is cognitive as well as physical, which scares many people, although once they meet somebody with Down, they're not scared at all. Time and again, I have seen people learn to love and grow by living with persons of difference.
I know the work it was involved with Dakota when he was a baby, and all that work would have been on the baby and no time for Dakota. And so Dakota's health would have declined as well if we would have had another CF child, you know. And unless, you know, people can think what they want or anything like that, but unless you live it, a special needs child, you have no idea. You know, it's definitely a challenge every day.
1, 2.
As he grows older, Dakota is beginning to understand his disease. He takes his enzymes by himself now at school. He and his family cope. But the Howells decided that after Dakota, they couldn't handle another child with CF. Wolbring argues that society's aim should be to help families cope, not to offer genetic choices that he believes promote intolerance of people who are different.
Since we talked about genetic discrimination, no cures happened yet, and I don't see any coming in the near future. But what happened is that we increased discrimination against so-called people with these targeted conditions.
If you talk about discrimination, it happened many, many years ago, right? Ever since perhaps we noticed such an illness and so on. So now we just know that yes, that they are due to these gene mutations, making diagnosis better, making treatments more effective.
When we come back, whose choice is it anyway? Who decides who will measure up?
If you give parents this kind of idea, oh well, if you don't like that kind of kid, you can have another one. You think parents wouldn't go for that?
I think it would be the medical doctor's obligation to tell the parents and let the parents make the choice.